When it comes to Christian bands, some of the names can be pretty interesting. We have weirder names like Skillet, more obvious names like Disciple, and there's one that's a direct reference to Christ himself in today's bands, Nine Lashes, referring to the 9 lashes that Jesus got in his back as a slave, something like that. Forming in Birmingham, Alabama in 2006, they're barely a decade and a half old, but they've made some good waves. With a mostly consistent lineup, willingness to try new stuff, and a positive feeling to what they do, it's no wonder why these bands are getting their praises. But it's my job to tell you what's worth praising and what's worth damning. Now, let's face the music. We start with the band's debut album, Escape. Weird name for a debut. Released in 2009, it's their only one through Collide Records, only one produced by Travis Werrick, and it's the longest album of 43 minutes and 15 seconds. Now, onto the band's origin story. The band was initially formed by guitarist Adam Tank Jefferson and drummer Keith Cunningham, who played in another band prior to forming. Adam's brother John joined on guitar alongside Jared Gus Langford on bass, and lead singer Jeremy Dunn joined in 2007 to finalise the lineup at the time. The band did have a different singer before, but he got married and quit the life of being in a band, prompting Jeremy to join. During the band's early goings, they opened for another big band in Christian rock by the name Day of Fire at the Life Church in their native Alabama, got interviewed on Christian radio station WDJC/FM, -FM, and worked a lot alongside Teen Challenge, a Christian organization that helps teenagers. Basically, it's to write love on our arms, but for more religious-minded people, which I'm good with. Thanks to these big leaps, they soon released their debut album through indie label Collide, and the album itself is pretty good. It's the only album of the bands that I hadn't listened to prior to starting writing for the episode, but I did enjoy it. There's a lot of the band's influences through the album, like Breaking Benjamin, Chevelle, and Joel Stones. However, while this album did well and would get the band more well known on later events, which I'll get to soon, the production on this album it's okay, but the main reason for that is possibly because producer Travis Werrick was kind of a high-strung douche rocket. The dude worked the band to the frickin' bone, making sure that they weren't sleeping in too late and accusing them of tardiness at LA Times of, I know, criminal things like 8 in the morning. For a dude who's worked with bigger named bands like POD and Pillar, maybe it's the fact that he's working on an indie label that set him off. Or maybe he really is just that kind of an asshat. Either way, the way that he treated the band is probably what results in the album's overall production value not sounding great. It's not even that the album is about a decade old now. I've heard older albums that sound way better than this in terms of production. But, everything else is still good. Production issues aside, the album has a nice measured structure with a good amount of emotion and some good rock chops too. The lyrics cover faith, love, and God, making messages obvious, but still good. And the band going hard too. Jeremy's vocals have good control and drive to them. Adam and Joe's guitar work has good riffs to carry things along. Jared's bass is nice and thick and shines a lot here, which I quite like. And Keith's drumming is heavy and speedy too. Standout songs include the title track, Cancer, Words of Red, Afterglow, and my favourite, In Fly. This game may be rough around the edges, but it does what it sets out to do. It shows the band's chops well, and it's got some pretty decent lyrics, so yeah, at the end of the day, I can recommend this one. We then released their second album, World We View. Released in 2012 through Tooth and Nail, it was produced by Aaron Sprinkle and Trevor McNevin of 1000 Foot Crutch. It's the album which contains my first 9 Lashes song in Anthem of the Lonely. It's my first full album by the band through and through, and it's also the band's only album to have guest stars, as Trevor appears on the song Adrenaline and Ryan Clark of Demon Hunter appears on the song Our Darkest Day. Now, onto the background. After their debut was something of a sleeper hit, the band were hoping to get bigger by playing at their native Alabama's Magnolia Festival. At said festival, guitarist John Jefferson handed a copy of Escape to the festival's promoter Joe Posey. Posey liked what he heard on the album and went to one of the band's future concerts to see them live, and impressed by them live as well, he sent his copy of Escape to Trevor McNevin. Since Trevor was suffering ruptured appendix at the time, and since he wasn't doing much at the time despite his usually busy schedule, he listened to the album. He also liked it, and he sent that same copy to Brendan Abel, the head honcho of Tooth and Nail Records, and, wouldn't you know it, he liked it too. In June 2011, the band was signed to Tooth and Nail, and later that same year they took part in the Kings and Queens tour after another band had split up, and they also took part in Red's Red Revolution tour, as well as the King of Band and Creation Northwest festivals that very summer. So even before the band put this album out, they got some major touring and festival opportunities, and the album lives up to all that hype and then some. For one thing, it's way more experimental, and with the band's core sound stretched out brilliantly, it's just really good. The production is fucking tasty, and Aaron and Trevor both do great jobs behind the booth. It was also nice that the band got to work with people who weren't decades, so huzzah for that. Aaron Sprinkle let the band sort of take their time, which explains why this album is 3 years after their debut, but the album doesn't sound or feel lazy at all. I like the influences used, and it has a diverse range of sounds to it. One thing I like is the song Afterglow, which was re-recorded from their debut, but structured a lot differently here, and honestly, the version on this album sounds a lot better in my opinion. The album has a really organic feel to it, and while it wasn't in my overall top 10 of 2012 or even an honorable mention, hell, I still really like it. The structure has a great pace with enough slow moments to interest people, and the experimental sound pays off dividends. The lyrics cover death, loss, loneliness, and belief, and once again, the band hit hard. Jeremy's vocals have a much better range to them, and some really good screaming too. John and Adam have thick riffs and some good solos, which is always nice to see. Jared's bass is deep and heavy as well, and Keith's drumming is fast and mean, and I like it. Standout songs include Anthem of the Lonely, Our Darkest Day, Write It Down, Memo, and my favourite, an Adrenaline. I did that on purpose, by the way. Organic, diverse, and brilliantly produced and performed, World Review is worth the band's hard work to that point, and I can highly recommend it. It feels like it's an album that pays off at the end, you know? We then reached their third album, From Water to War. Released in 2014 through Tooth and Nail, it was produced by Aaron Sprinkle again alongside Jason Rauch this time, and it's the band's shortest album at 35 minutes and 9 seconds. It's also the band's first album with current drummer Noah Terrell. Now, onto the background. After their second album's critical and commercial success, in August 2013, Nine Lashes went on the From Water tour to promote this album. That October, they released the first single from this album in Break the World, and then Surrender not long after that before the album was released. I don't have a whole lot to say about this album in terms of background and touring, but the sound of this album is quite different. It takes a lot of the electronic stuff that they had on World Review and turns that up to 11 on here, and as shifts in sound go after a successful album, I appreciate the band sticking to wanting to change. The shift between Escape and World Review was apparent, so why not do the same for the third record? I think I actually listened to this album when it came out at first, which was about a week before it was supposed to be released, and the band shared stream the album on their Facebook page because they didn't want to wait any longer because of how proud they were of it. And you know, yeah, I like that. That's good. Also, yeah, all in all, I like the shift in sound, and working with Aaron and Jason more closely results in another solid album. The band focuses more on the electronic side, with the production really bringing it all together here, but there is still the more diverse and heavy moments here and there too, and the album is short but still paced out well, which I like. Also, in terms of lyrics, there almost feels like a concept. Usually this is hard for me to talk about the album being banned, but I actually do quite like this one. I just generally don't have a lot to say about it that isn't really repeating myself at this point, and I don't have nearly enough information on the recording or touring process except for lead singer Jeremy Dunn promising a more enhanced sound, and you can't say that the band didn't deliver on that promise. Going back to the band, to the concept of this album, it feels like there's an underlying story to it. It feels as though there's a character struggling with their faith, and if that's the case, it feels as, where was I? And then I like the new sound meeting pacing and really having new sound meeting up with that. I am completely losing the player. The structure and balance is solid and measured with the aforementioned good pacing and really happy moments to shine alongside the new elements, and lyrics cover struggle, love, sadness, and belief. And the band will sound great too. Jeremy's vocals are still good with awesome screams as well. John and Adam turn in some decent riffs and scales. Jared's bass is nice and deep too, and Noah's drumming is heavy and paced out well. Standout songs include Break the World, Light It Up, Surrender, The Great Closer, and Cover Your Own, and my favourite, and Light Sweet Burn. Paced, performed, and produced well, Nine Lashes changed the formula to something interesting and risky, and I feel like that risk again pays off. I can recommend this one. And finally, we reached their fourth and most recent album, Ascend. Released in 2016, it would be released for the BEC label this time, and I couldn't find a producer for it, so let's just say there was Nine Lashes themselves. There was also some lineup changes. I think there are conflicting things that I've read, but I think that Adam Jefferson was replaced by Andrew Jefferson, and I have no clue if they're related, but let's just assume that they are. Besides that, there isn't a lot of background besides the fact that Jared left after this album came out, and I think that's why the band hasn't released anything in a while. They may be still looking for a new bass player, I don't know, but not having background allows me to talk more about the actual album, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Once again, it's a big shift in sound, being more electronic and pop rock and just pop aimed in general, as opposed to their hard rock edge. It's basically the band taking the experimentation they did on From Water to War and going for the complete wrong end of it. So yeah, I hate Ascend. I may as well just tell you guys that right now. I think it's got some good production to it, don't get me wrong, but it's really overdone. The album just feels empty, and I'm not just saying that because it's more pop focused. This year alone I've heard some decent pop sounding albums, but this album came out in 2016, not 2019, and in the 3 years since, even with my musical taste expanding more, this one doesn't sound any better than it did back when it first came out. First, there's the pacing. This album is really slow for the most part, and it almost put me to sleep when I first heard it. Another thing that hasn't changed in the 3 years since it's released, the album just feels like, okay, here's the thing. It takes all the band's subtlety with their lyrics and throws that completely into the bin. There isn't any storytelling elements to it, and the lyrics feel as on the nose and one note as the music itself. Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against religion, but listening to over 38 minutes of the same religious messages, that is something I really can't stomach. And goodness me, the instrumental work. It basically feels like what Fall Out Boy did since their comeback and continues to do, in that there are instruments somewhere, but who cares? Lead singer and sometimes a guitar riff, maybe one solo on the album. One solo! And if the band did produce this one themselves, then what the holy fuck were they thinking? The structuring was poor with no balance and terrible pacing, lyrics just feel banal and repetitive. And the band, oh, the band. Jeremy's vocals are decent, and I like that he carries a cleaner sound, but it feels more phoned in. The guitar work is uninspired, the bass is buried so hard, the drummer may as well have not even bothered showing up. Standout songs include the title track, Stolen, Eyes on You, and my favourite in Heartbeats. The album has good intentions, but it repeats those intentions to the point of numb meaninglessness, with an overproduced, incoherent structure, and not really many redeeming qualities, or no redeeming qualities at all. I just can't recommend it. It's not good. It's not good. I realize it has its audience, but I'm not part of that audience. Yeah, don't listen to it. So, let's round it up and get them out of here. I'd have to say my favourite is World Review, a great core sound and exploration of it while still talking about dark subjects like on their debut, with amazing production to it as well. I really love how they handled that. Least favourite is Ascend. It overreaches way too much and says way too little, but somehow says that little thing a lot. I couldn't find anything good about it, and I no longer have the adrenaline to talk about it. That's my pun. I'll see you next time for another 2-part episode where I'll be covering Garden Grove, California's own The Offspring. I know. And as always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye. I'll probably see you tonight for a new PBW stream, and on Sunday for a UFC Fight of the Night review if there's a Fight of the Night to talk about. I'm sorry my hair's a mess, it always is. Bye.